Well, good evening and welcome to Peak Travel's February travel night. Thank you for joining us tonight. My name is Chris Nosworthy and I will be your host for this evening. I am here in the Peak Travel office. I am a little bit saddened by the fact that there's not a little bit more buzz going on and there's some social aspects, some food and some wine before the event, but we'll get back there, I promise. But thank you for joining us tonight from wherever you're coming from. And tonight we are looking at part 2 of our bucket list series. Originally, we intended this to be a one-night only event, but from a lot of good feedback from our event last month, we were actually pushing to get some more information out to you about some other destinations that might be on your bucket list or ones that you wanted to hear more about. At any stage tonight, if you do have any questions or if you have any comments or you want to reiterate something that one of the designers talks about, please use the chat function at the bottom of the page. At the end of the night, we will ask you if there are any questions or if there is a chat question that we will look to do as well. So if you can have that chat up at the end of the night, that would be wonderful. And no, I am not Linda Bent tonight. We did send Jim and Linda and their family off to Hawaii, and they're staying there for a couple of weeks to work remotely from there. We are a little bit jealous, even though the weather is getting nicer here in Minnesota. I would rather take 80 degrees on the beach in Hawaii. But Jim and Linda are joining us tonight just from a different perspective. So if you did want to say hi to them in the chat, please feel free to do so. And while you're doing that, I'm going to pass it over to our first speaker, Liz Matassa, who is going to share kind of what her new findings are in the industry.
Yes, hi everybody. So what is popular right now? That's a question that we get a lot. And Greece is on many people's bucket lists. It's been top of, or one or two, fighting for the top spot with Italy for quite some time. So let's start with just a short video to help take you there. We'd all really like to be there right now. So I want to tell you that Greece was on my bucket list, and though I spent 13 days there, it still is on that list. There are so many beautiful islands to visit, sights to see on the mainland, that this little country is worth a second, third, or even fourth visit. You can island hop via plane, visit the historical sites of the mainland like ancient Olympia and Delphi, or take a cruise from port to port. First stop, Athens. Any trip to Greece will essentially start and end in Athens, since that's where the main airport is that connects the entire country. This city is really worth at least 2 nights, but I recommend 3. It is full of history everywhere you look. The food scene is also amazing, with neighborhood, family-owned cafes, and also fine dining establishments. Walking the historic Plaka is an experience unto itself, with the colorful shops and delicious smells wafting through the air, and the Acropolis towering above you everywhere you go. Take a food tour, try the best Greek olive oil, traditional phyllo delicacies, both sweet and savory, feta cheese on homemade bread, and more, ending with a glass of ouzo. A memorable day trip from Athens takes you to Sunio. That's on the south coast, with a visit to the Temple of Poseidon. You can see there on the left. The ancient Greeks believed storms were signs of Poseidon's anger, and therefore the temple at Cape Sunio was a sacred place where Greeks came to offer animal sacrifices and other gifts to appease him and find favor. After a tour of the ruins, take in a stunning sunset on the Athenian Riviera with dinner at an alfresco restaurant. Having dinner in Athens with an Acropolis view is also on my do it again list. Mykonos and Santorini are on a lot of bucket lists for good reason. Mykonos has beautiful beaches, plus a vibrant nightlife and exceptional dining scene. One really special experience from Mykonos is a private Bohemian lunch on the small deserted island of Renia. After a short speedboat transfer, you arrive at a sandy beach where everything will be laid out for you for a bohoshi cooking experience. Enjoy an authentic Greek sea-to-plate menu of innovative fish dishes while relaxing on the beach with no one else around. Santorini possibly has the most memorable views among the many stunning landscapes of Greece. Taking a sunset catamaran cruise here, either private or small group, that's me on the back of our catamaran from our cruise. Exploring the caldera, which is the rim of what is still an active volcano, is a perfect way to end your day. With a picnic dinner on board and your crew taking care of everything for you while you snorkel or relax as you cruise the island is a must. Another special splurge here is to get a room in Ia at a cliff hotel with a caldera view and your own plunge pool or jacuzzi. The picture on the left is one that I took from our balcony. Just sitting and taking in the view with your coffee in the morning or a glass of wine at night from the privacy of your own room is pure heaven. Exploring the ruins of Santorini, relaxing on a black sand beach, or doing a wine tasting with a spectacular view of the Mediterranean Sea are some of my favorite things to do here as well. There is more to Greece than just these islands, and Naxos, Paros, and Crete are all easily paired with Santorini or Mykonos. Naxos is a great alternative for those wanting a quieter experience that is similar to Mykonos. Get a hotel room with a private pool and a sea view, or even rent a villa. There are ruins, catamaran cruises, and food experiences here that will keep you plenty busy, or unleash your creativity with a mosaic workshop and learn this ancient Greek art form. The Paros landscape is gorgeous. The beaches here are also some of the best, along with the picturesque villages and the bustling capital Perikia, with its pretty shopping area and small harbor. Nearby is the smaller island of Antiparos, home to Tom Hanks and his wife, who got their Greek citizenship recently and is only a short ferry ride away. The pictures you were just seeing, if you want to go back, Chris, one more. These are of Perikia. It's just so charming and quaint, and having lunch and a glass of wine or some other spritzer on a sunny day is just spectacular. The next one, if you want to move ahead, I want to, of course, mention cruising. And cruising really is the best way to get around Greece easily, especially when you want to see a number of the islands. The ships sail at night, and it makes it easy to just get around. Seabourn, Silversea, and Windstar, I have to point out, have the best itineraries. They will get you to the smaller Greek ports and also have more Greek intensive itineraries. Windstar dedicates a ship entirely to Greece each year during the season, and they also include a stop in the port of Kusadasi. This is in Turkey. From here, you can visit Ephesus, as you're seeing in this slide, and Windstar hosts a sunset dinner at the foot of the ruins for guests at no extra charge. You can never get enough of those Greek sunsets. And next, I'm going to give you the top 5 reasons why Switzerland should be on your bucket list. Number 5, the beautiful castles. Chillon Castle, which is the first one you're seeing there in the top left, is considered the #1 castle to see in Switzerland and is a short boat or train ride from Montreux on Lake Geneva. You can visit 3 different castles easily from Interlaken, Thun Castle, Castle Spies, and Oberhofen. The town of Bellinzona also has the ruins of 3 castles within the town, and Castel Grande is in the best condition of the 3, so that's the one I would recommend. And it also has a wonderful little cave restaurant on the grounds. Number 4, the many outdoor activities. Check out the majestic views as you go zip lining, try an alpine slide, cliff walk, canyoning, whitewater rafting, jet boat rides, historic boat rides, plus there's miles and miles of hiking trails. Number 3, the train rides. With the most efficient train system in the world, plus well-maintained train cars with big windows, it's the perfect way to move about the country. They also have cogwheel trains, funiculars, gondolas, and cable cars. This world's steepest cogwheel train climbs up Mount Pilatus. So that's an experience to maybe put on your sub bucket list. And there's also scenic trains, such as the Bernina Express or the Glacier Express. The photo on the right is my son Max eating an ice cream cone as we ride down after having done some hiking. He said it was his very favorite part of the trip. Number 2, the picturesque villages. Some of my personal favorites are Wengen, which is actually not shown, Grindelwald, which is the large photo, Muren in the upper left, but also I want to highlight Lauterbrunnen. That was the photo at the very beginning of my presentation, just to name a few. Lauterbrunnen Valley is home to 72 waterfalls, and you won't want to miss the thunderous Traubelbach or the stunning Staubach Falls. Staubach Falls is one that you see from like the cliff top, kind of as a backdrop to the entire town and the entire valley, really. It's absolutely stunning. And number 1, to quote blogger Anna of the Backpacker Bible, whatever kind of nature you prefer, there's no denying that the alpine landscape of Switzerland will take your breath away. The whole country is postcard ready, always flanked by the snow-capped peaks of the Alps anywhere you look. It simply is one of the most stunning landscapes that you will ever see. And now I will pass it over to Linda.
Where are the Galapagos? They are an archipelago of islands off of the west coast of South America. They're technically part of Ecuador, and it's about 620-ish miles off the coast. There's 21 islands, 18 that are active. You can see kind of the map of them on the left there. It takes about 2 hours or so to get there from Quito, and Quito will be your first stop in the country. You have to go there to pass customs, and then usually spend a night or two in Quito, which we can talk about, and then fly out to the islands. So what do you expect when you get out there, and why are they so popular? Well, of course, the lore of the islands came thanks to Charles Darwin. He actually spent several weeks there back in 1835 and studied finches and some of the birds and some of the wildlife, and it actually was the impotence for his theory on evolution. And that's why the wildlife and just the islands in general and their interesting makeup and their position within the Pacific Ocean has gotten so much popularity, because there are some things here you cannot see in any other part of the world. And it's just it's an education playground, frankly. So just to give you a little bit about what to expect, the land formations are unbelievable. It is volcanic islands out in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. So you just have a range of just barren rocks and desert with cactus and volcanic makeup and landscapes. And then also some areas that are a little more lush. So it's just a really broad spectrum of what you will find. Of course, the wildlife is why most people go. I have to start with the cutest ones because the sea lions are just amazing, and there's often babies around, and they come almost right up to you. We swam with them. It's pretty amazing. Of course, the marine life is also why a lot of people go. The snorkeling, and it is a haven for divers, rays and turtles, and just penguins that you swim with, and sea lions, and just fish and the coral and everything. And of course, on the bottom right is an interesting creature called a marine iguana. It is only found in the Galapagos, and it is the only iguana that swims. So that is on the left-hand side. Not my favorite in terms of cuteness, but fascinating. There's several different kinds of reptiles and iguanas, and they're plentiful all around. And the guides tell you things that you would never have thought you would learn about iguanas, and kind of why they're important in the ecosystem of the Galapagos. And then, of course, there's just so many other things. Some are small, some are, noteworthy. The penguins and the flamingos, of course, are some of the noteworthy ones. People people get very excited to see them. Depending on the islands that you go to, you will probably see them. And then the smaller things, we always talk about that. The Sally Lightfoot crab on the bottom left was actually one of my favorite to photograph because they're so brilliant with the backdrop of the black lava. And then just all the other small flora and fauna that are very unique to the islands. Birds, if you're a bird lover, you're going to be in heaven. The iconic blue-footed booby, of course, on the right they're actually very funny to watch. They have very interesting dances and whistles, and they're just iconic to the Galapagos and very cool. And then on the left is the frigate bird. This is a male puffing up his throat to attract a female mate. But of course, birds, hundreds of kinds of finches and albatross and other birds, other kinds of boobies and other kinds of just migrating birds that come through and who make their home there. And then of course, the giant tortoise is a must-see. It's on every itinerary for the Galapagos, and Charles Darwin has a foundation there, and you go right to see them, and they're out in the wild. It's fascinating, and they're huge, so they're very fun to watch and maneuver around. So how do you see the Galapagos? Really, it's up to you, and we will help you make that suggestion. Most people do it by boat. Expedition cruises, Silver Sea, Celebrity, Lindblad, National Geographic, they all have great options that we can help you navigate. Also, Jim's going to talk a little later about chartering private catamarans and stuff. That's also a good option in the Galapagos, depending on your group size. The thing about seeing it by cruise is you do cover more territory. So you see more islands because, of course, during the night when you're sleeping, they sail and you wake up in a different place. On the boat, this is how you get around. This is a Zodiac. So you usually do 2 excursions every day. One might be a water-based one where you go snorkeling or just go out exploring on the Zodiac. And then one is usually getting on land to hike. And so it's a fairly active option. On the bottom is if you want to do it by land. This is one of our favorites. It's called Pacaya. And basically you stay in a hotel type setting. Obviously, this isn't a typical hotel. It's very cool, eco-friendly, and fascinating in and of itself. But basically, then you do day trips out of there. So you can't cover as many islands necessarily, but some people may just want to go for 5 days and do a land-based and then take what you can get by going out on boats from there. And I did just want to, before I go on to my next destination, let you guys know that I actually have a multi-gen group going on Silver Sea next July of 2022. And because I have a block of rooms, I am actually able to get some extra discounts. So if it is on your list, email me and I can tell you more about this. But the ships, because the expedition ships are small, like the Silver Sea one only has 100 people, it is selling out. So these are just a few of the perks that you would get by booking on this particular, there's one sailing, July 30th is the date. And if you have flexibility and can go then, let me know, shoot me an email, lindab@peaktravel.com, and I'll let you know more about it. Where
All right, I am next. My name is Erin Green. I'm also a designer here at Peak, and I'm going to start you guys off with a place that has been on a lot of our clients' bucket lists, and that is Egypt. It's great for its mix of history. If you're a history buff, this has got to be on your list. Beautiful scenery, culture, and nature and activity as well. So just pointed out on a map here, Egypt is northeast kind of corner of the African continent. It also kind of bridges over to the Middle East, which makes other bucket list worthy destinations like Jordan or Israel very easy to add on to your trip as well. If we look a little more specifically at Egypt, I'm just kind of going to point out the places I'm going to mention here. You know, we've got Cairo up at the top, which is sort of the jumping point. And then working down the Nile, you'll see Luxor, Aswan, Abu Simbel down there, and then we're going to talk a little bit about the Sinai Peninsula over to the east. So next slide, this is just a few of the highlights of Cairo. Most people will start in Cairo. New York actually has a direct flight. So a lot of our clients will fly to New York and then get on an Egypt Air flight directly into Cairo. Otherwise, if you are a Delta loyalist, you can go through Paris as well. Right outside of Cairo is the Pyramids of Giza, of course, very kind of the signature image of Egypt. Some other interesting things around the pyramids that you may not know about. There's actually a solar boat museum where a full-size ship was buried at one point with the pharaoh to kind of sail him off into his afterlife, and it's still there. They've unearthed it. You can see it. It's fascinating. The Egyptian Museum is, you could spend days there, honestly, but the mummies and King Tut's golden treasures are there. And then the bottom two pictures just show you some of the beautiful architecture and culture. The market there is really great for rugs or leather, spices, perfumes. There's kind of a great mix of cultures in Cairo, and you can see that through the shopping. Next slide, we're gonna kind of go down the Nile. And the Nile is one of the few rivers that actually runs from south to north. It starts in Lake Victoria, that's where the origins are, and then it empties out into the Mediterranean. It's really the hub of life in Egypt. 95% of Egyptians live within a few miles of the Nile, so it's kind of, it really is the highlight of the country. Next slide. I would say most of our clients end up going on a river cruise in Egypt just because of what I just mentioned, with the Nile sort of being the breadbasket and the kind of cultural hub. It's a really fascinating river to traverse and kind of watch everything going on in the banks, beautiful scenery. If you do not want to river cruise, there are ways to do this by land, because there is a fair amount of time, sailing down the river, which for some people is extremely appealing. Others feel a little restless. So there's different ways to do this, and we'd love to talk you through what makes sense for you. This boat here is with our partners, AMA Waterways. I'm sure there are many of you in the chat that have been on AMA, maybe in Europe, maybe in other places. This is a brand new ship they've built specifically for Egypt. It has a pool. It only has 68 passengers on board, so very small, and it's really going to be a wonderful way to do that river cruise. So first kind of highlight on the Nile that was circled was Luxor. And Luxor, people kind of refer to it as the whole area as an open air museum. There are so many temples here. The Valley of the Kings, which is where most of these pictures are taken from. There are 63 kings that were buried here. So just so much to see in terms of history. Karnak is a collection of many cathedrals. I mean, it's just fascinating, the history everywhere you go. It's so impressive. It's such a large scale that it really is quite unique. Moving on to Aswan. Aswan, this place is interesting. A lot of the granite that statues all over Egypt were built with was taken from Aswan. There's also some kind of partially finished statues that are still left in the ground that you can go see. It's beautiful, it's picturesque, the hills around the water. A lot of people spend time sailing around here. So if you do not do a river cruise while you are in Aswan, you probably want to get on a felucca, which are those sailboats there's one in the upper right and upper left. It's just a beautiful way to see the water. There's a few islands with archaeological sites that you can kind of hop around to. More tombs, of course, there's endless tombs in Egypt, but they're also different. The Nubia Museum is here, and a lot of Coptic churches that once again kind of showcase that mix of culture. And then I want to mention Abu Simbel. Abu Simbel is, you have to fly down to Abu Simbel from either Luxor or Cairo. It's a long day trip from Cairo, but I had some clients do it. I had a 5 a.m. wake up call. They were there by 11. They explored it. They got back on a plane at 3 o'clock, went back to Cairo, and they said they were so glad they did it. It was their favorite thing that they saw. And what's really interesting about this tomb specifically is because the dam on Lake Nasser was built down there in the 60s, and they actually had to move this entire site. So it's as it was as you see it, but this all got moved somehow in the 60s. So you can obviously learn more about how they did that when you go, but it just adds another really interesting element. And then we're going to jump over quickly and just talk about the Sinai Peninsula. Mount Sinai and Mount Catherine are found there. They're great places for hiking. In biblical history, Mount Sinai is where Moses would have received the 10 Commandments. Most people will go hike this at sunrise and watch the sun come up. If hiking is not for you, you can ride a camel most of the way up, which adds another interesting twist to it, but just a kind of a nice active addition to your trip to Egypt. And then finally, the Red Sea. And you may not think snorkeling when you think Egypt, but there's some really interesting shipwrecks. There's beautiful coral reefs. So if you've got the time to add on a few days, you can do some beach days, you can do some ocean days, and kind of a relaxing way to finish up your trip. And then we're going to move on to one other destination that should be on your list if it's not already. That's Japan. It's been really popular for us. It is a pricier destination, so this is one that if you are thinking you want to do it, especially for, see most of Japan, not most of Japan, but do kind of a well-rounded visit to Japan, it's something you might want to budget for. So we recommend reaching out to us early so we can kind of get things planned out for you and then plan from there. Moving on, this is Tokyo, kind of a signature view. Many of you have probably seen the movie Lost in Translation. That was shot at the Park Hyatt Hotel, which is one of our partner hotels that we love. And they're at the top of a large high-rise, so really great city views such as this one. Moving on, also in Tokyo, there's a lot of really quirky culture in Tokyo. You'll see the picture on the left, owl cafes, cat cafes, robot cabarets. I mean, if you name it, Tokyo probably has it in some form. Shibuya Crossing, you'll see on the right, one of the busiest intersections in the world. Just the kind of in-your-face sort of glamour and shops and electronics, and it's a really fascinating city. Moving on to Kyoto. Kyoto kind of takes things down a notch from Tokyo. Really, really beautiful temples. The bamboo you see on the left, it's actually kind of a bit of a trick to get in at the right time to take a picture like that because there are a lot of people there. But our guides kind of know the tricks to get you there when it's a little less crowded and get you that signature photo. And then of course, learning about the geisha culture. If you are interested in dressing like a geisha, we've got people that can kind of help you learn about the clothing and the fabrics and get dressed up for an afternoon and learn a tea ceremony as well, which is a traditional cultural aspect of Japan that's pretty fun. And then moving on, this is Hakone, and this is more kind of south of Tokyo. You can get here by train very easily. The bullet trains all over Japan make it really easy to get around quickly. You'll see beautiful views of Mount Fuji. This lake, you can go out on day cruises, and there's a really unique sculpture garden located nearby. And this is a really great place to consider staying at a ryokan. And my picture on the right there shows you ryokans are traditional Japanese inns. The beds are mattresses kind of on the floor. They're very nice. All your food is included, but it's just a very traditional Japanese style accommodation. And most of them have hot springs that the kind of lodging is built around. So either shared or private. Nice way to soak after your day of touring. And then a little off the beaten path, kind of like Egypt. You don't always think of snorkeling in Egypt. People don't always think of Japan and beaches, but Japan has some really stunning beaches. This is in Okinawa. There's a lot of islands south of the main island that where Tokyo and Kyoto are. So if you've got the time to add on, there's a lot of smaller villages to visit, beautiful reefs, a lot of interesting, more Japanese authentic resorts. Another relaxing, great way to end your trip. And then finally, we can't talk about Japan without talking about food, of course. Some of you local people may know Stephanie March. She's a food writer here, and we had her at a Peak event 2 years ago, and she had been to Japan and said the great thing with Japan is everything they do to perfection. So you'll have the best pizza you've ever had in Japan. You'll have the best sushi, obviously. Everything they do is really an art in the culinary world. So cooking classes are really popular, whether you're learning to make sushi or learning how to make udon noodles into soup. The fish markets are really a cool visit. They auction off fresh tuna every morning, and just to go see that whole process. And then bottom left, Japanese whiskey and distilling in general is kind of a hidden gem. My sister actually the other, I guess it was a few weeks ago, but she had Japanese gin and gave me a little shot of it. And I normally would not drink straight gin, but it was Japanese gin and it was so smooth. So that may be kind of another unique aspect of Japan to add on to your culinary tour. So that's it for me. I think I'm passing it off to Jim.
Havana, ooh, na, na. Half of my heart is in Havana, ooh, na, na. He took me back to East Atlanta, na, na, na. All of my heart is in Havana. My heart is in Havana. Havana, ooh, na, na. Take me back, back, back. Take me back, back, back. Take me back, back, back. Take me back, back, Take me back to Havana, ooh, na, na. Half of my heart is in Havana, ooh, na, na. He took me back to East Atlanta, na, na, na. All of my heart is in Havana. My heart is in Havana. Havana, ooh, na, na. No, no, take me back. Havana, ooh, na, na.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that video to give you a glimpse of what Cuba has to offer. And I must admit, it held a lot of special meaning for me because that trip was a father-daughter experience that I was able to have with Abby when she turned 13. So today, I'm going to tell you a little bit more about why I believe Cuba should be a place that's definitely on your wanderlist. Well, let's start by looking at where Cuba is located. You might be surprised to learn that Cuba is only 90 miles from Key West, Florida. And as a matter of fact, it's about 80% of the size of Florida and home to about 11 million people. So by far the largest island we have in the Caribbean. Now you might be wondering, with some of the headlines over the last few years, is Cuba open to Americans? And the good news is we have a great partner on the ground there that can help us get all the appropriate licenses that you would need to make sure that it's a legal visit, for you. In addition to that, we have the ability to create private custom trips to Cuba. And that's a real benefit because most trips to Cuba right now are part of a group. And especially with COVID and being able to customize a trip around your needs, we're excited that we can do that for you on a custom basis. What that allows us to do is really, pick not only the experiences that you want to have, but also, help, pick the right types of properties to match what you're looking for. So that might be one of the larger historic properties that we have within Havana, or maybe you want to have more of a neighborhood feel and be in one of the luxury villas. All those are possibilities that we can discuss when you start to plan your trip. So you might be wondering, what to expect when you do visit Cuba. And I think all of us have in our heads all these vintage vehicles that are there. You might be wondering if these are just for tourists and maybe there's a handful of them, but I can attest that when we were in Havana, they literally are all over the roads. As you see open parking lots, you'll see the drivers out there proudly displaying their cars, which are all for rent for you to easily take a tour of the city streets. And it feels like you literally step back in time with all these 1950s, cars around. Something that they're very proud of, and something that's very, very big part of their culture. Now, as far as the landscape within the city, from a tourism perspective, you are going to see, brightly painted buildings, that are meant to display what Havana, should all be about. But at the same time, as you start to wander off of some of the tourist areas, you're going to quickly find that Havana is not so pristine. you'll see the firsthand impact of what the U.S. embargo has meant on the infrastructure, and really see the daily lives of what Cubans are going through. Really living on very, very basic, basic infrastructure. Now, the good news is, as you walk around Havana, what you're going to find is that it is a very safe and you'll be a very safe place to go, and you're going to be greeted with lots of smiles. Our experience was that Cubans were very happy to welcome American tourists. They saw it really as a sign of hope and things to come. So by traveling there, you're really helping the local economy, and you're helping to really bridge that gap between Cubans and Americans. Now, no trip to Cuba wouldn't be complete without Hemingway. It's a great opportunity as you're anticipating your trip to Cuba to maybe dust off some old Hemingway books or add them onto your Kindle and start reading some of his famous works. So then when you actually do visit, you can follow in his footsteps by visiting his home, which is a must. There's so many great stories and history and artifacts there that are fascinating to see. And then Hemingway really walked the streets of Havana, so you'll hear all kinds of fun little stories about the bars and restaurants that he used to frequent, along the way. So a big part of the tour is definitely checking out, Hemingway and his life in Cuba. Cuba is also home to a vibrant arts and culture, community. So whether it's taking in a performance, at one of their, luxurious theaters, or it's simply walking along the streets and listening to some of the local musicians, like you heard at the beginning of today's presentation. You'll also find a variety of charming little dinner clubs where you can grab a mojito and listen to some of the bands that are playing there. We have the ability to also set up salsa lessons for some of our clients. So if you're looking for kind of a fun activity to do, there's no better place to learn these dance steps, certainly, than in Cuba. You're going to instantly feel the local culture literally on every street corner. And for our food and drink lovers, a lot of the menus are going to feature fresh produce, certainly seafood, along some of the most pristine reefs in the Caribbean. You'll find that on many different menus that are out there. We have the ability to arrange market tours and also set up some cooking classes. So if you want to learn how to make authentic Cuban cuisine, what a better place to do that, to be able to go to the market, pick out your ingredients, learn how to cook them, and then enjoy them afterwards. Or if you're more into the different types of drinks that are available in Cuba, we can arrange a pub crawl. So you can actually go through Havana and actually experience some of the best mojitos that Cuba has to offer. All of them have a little bit of a different variation to it. Even Hemingway had a strong opinion about which bar offered the best mojito. Now, for our history buffs, there's a lot to explore here. Certainly we have a lot of historic fortresses, just filled with interesting stories. But if you're more into some of the political history that's out there, we can also organize visits to sites like the Bay of Pigs. What I found was interesting about all of these tours is to hear the alternate history or perception of how things transpired. And I think that's just a great thing about travel in general, is to hear other perspectives outside of the American point of view, so that you can get a complete picture of how people perceive those events to take place. If you want to get a little bit out of the city, there's some great countryside visits that we can do. You can go ahead and visit some of the scenic tobacco fields that are out there, where they're still farming the same way they have for generations. We arrange for clients horseback riding throughout these picturesque areas, and can also set up a farm-to-table lunch or dinner experience there. And for you photography buffs, you can see from these pictures, there is no shortage of scenery and scenes to capture with your camera. So Cuba really offers some authentic photography options for you as well. And then with all the places that we design trips to, we really think it's important that we have some cultural interaction that takes place. And so whether you're interested in visiting an artist studio, to learn more about the art scene in Cuba, or you want to take in a local baseball game, where some of the best baseball athletes are actually in Cuba that aren't able to play over in the US. These are fun activities that can easily be arranged. Or if you're looking for something maybe a little bit more adventurous, we have the ability to actually set up some boxing classes with the Cuban Pro. Now they promised me that they don't actually spar with you, but you're gonna learn some really fun techniques, and it's just a different type of experience for you to do. Or if you're more interested in some R&R, there are just pristine beaches to go to that offer sailing and snorkeling and different types of water activities. So if Cuba isn't on your plans or hasn't been on your plans in your past, I think it's a really great destination that should be on your wander list, and maybe it's something that you consider for later this year or certainly into 2022.
Well, I'm back again, and I'm here ready to talk about something that's on my list, and that's Ireland. I've actually been to Ireland 3 times previously, but my family was planning a 2-week road trip this last year that obviously we've had to postpone. I was excited to take my boys there and experience it through their eyes compared to the last time I was there, which was a little bit more of a different type of trip, being kind of the solo nature of a college student. So um, Ireland is definitely high up on my list, and it's a very easy place to travel around. There's lots of great airports you can fly in and out of. Flying from the US here, you can fly into Dublin or Shannon, and that's pretty direct. It's a nice, smooth flight on multiple airlines. Or if you're already in Europe or in the UK, you can fly into some of the smaller regional airports like Cork or Kerry, or even up into Northern Ireland, into Belfast. And as you can see, it's not the biggest country, which is also nice. It makes it easy to get around. There's a great transit system. The train routes are very easy to get from coast to coast if you're not wanting to self-drive. But self-drive really is one of the better options to allow you the flexibility to explore everything in between the major points of A and B that you're hoping to get to. So tonight I'm going to talk a little bit about 2 different regions on the Wild Atlantic Way, which is that west coast of Ireland. I'm sure you've seen images of the Wild Atlantic Way. But firstly, we're going to start down in this southwest region near County Kerry, where you'll find Killarney National Park. It's about an hour-and-a-half drive from Cork, as well as the Ring of Kerry, the peninsula of Dingle, and then some other options you could look to add on to for day trips as well. So again, the diversity is pretty great within Ireland. Again, if you read any guidebooks, or if you hear anybody talking about previously traveling to Ireland, you'll probably hear the word castle a lot. But yes, there are a lot of ruins and castles that have been around since the 10th, 11th, 12th centuries. So there's a lot of history dating back. And what's nice is that we can arrange private guides to take you around these areas and see kind of the unique factors about it compared to if you were just to drive past and explore it on your own, or if you were to do it at the same time as a big bus tour. Again, there's lots of different ways that we can look to make your experience even more worthwhile. In the top left, you'll see Muckross House, which is in the Killarney National Park. You can easily spend a day alone in Killarney National Park, walking around the beautiful gardens, taking in the beautiful scenery. It's a beautiful area that you can definitely spend a full day in. The bottom left picture is Cork. If you speak to an Irish person, or if you're related to an Irish person, normally they would say that Cork really is the heart of the country. It is the people's capital of Ireland compared to Dublin, which is very much a big city and is very touristy. Tonight, we're not really going to talk about Dublin, but there are a lot of great things you can do in Dublin, whether that's Kilman Jail, whether that's the Guinness storehouse or the Jameson factories, which actually, if you're wanting to go to the Jameson factory, you shouldn't do it in Dublin. They've actually moved all the produce out of the city. But Cork really is that heart of of Ireland and the people. And as you can see, it is very beautiful. Lots of waterfront activities. Some of the best shopping anywhere in Ireland you'll find in Cork. And close by, you'll find Kinsale, which is another beautiful waterfront town, which is in the top right corner. Again, lots of forts that you'll find strewn across the coastlines. And here you can do some tours as well, again, to take in some of that medieval history. The bottom left picture is the Gap of Dunlow. Again, it takes you back in time almost, because one of the only ways to do this experience is by horse and carriage, because some of the tunnels that you go through are too small for vehicles, and they don't actually allow some vehicles in, and the only way to do it is by horse and carriage. So there's no better way to do it than with a local horseman, and obviously hearing the stories of the region, as well as getting to know him or her. It is a great experience that's an easy add-on while staying in this region. If you've also heard of the Wild Atlantic Way, I can almost guarantee you've heard of the Ring of Kerry. The two pictures on the right are the Ring of Kerry, and this really is a full day trip alone by itself. It is a self-drive ring that you drive around the peninsula. The one thing about the Ring of Kerry is that it's almost a guarantee that it's on every big bus tour. So that also kind of makes it a little bit of a different experience, especially if you've been to Yellowstone and you've been stuck behind some traffic. If you get stuck behind multiple buses on the Ring of Kerry, it might take away a little bit of the experience. Not to say that the scenery isn't beautiful, but sometimes you can get that road rage trying to get to the next point in the day on the Ring of Kerry. Something that I would offer just north, it's actually the next peninsula north of the Ring of Kerry, is Dingle. And those are the two pictures on the left. Again, the scenery is pure beauty. You've got beaches, you've got great rocky outcliffs, you have beautiful artisan glassware that is made there. You have a monk monastery that's all the way out on the farthest tip in Slee Head, out in Dingle, and it's actually considered the closest parish in Ireland to Boston. So a lot of people who have Irish roots, that when their family, if they moved over to the US, that was a big point for them, because that was the closest that they could come to their family in the US while being in Ireland. And one funny thing about Dingle is that it's got one of the highest per capita pubs to people anywhere in Ireland. There's about 1,900 people, registered people, that live in Dingle. There's actually 38 pubs. So again, the food and the drink is a big part of culture. And as you can see in the picture below, there's probably, I think, about 3 or 4 pubs just in that picture alone. So again, it is a beautiful place to get away from the crowds, because again, the crowds and the big buses don't get into this area. It's a beautiful place to go hiking and to ride your bike and to explore on your own without the crowds. If you're a Star Wars lover, just outside of here, you probably recognize the picture in the top left. That's kind of where Luke Skywalker was escaping kind of everybody and wanting to get away. This is actually right off the coast of Ireland. It's called Skellig Michael. So if you see the picture in the bottom left, it's a series of islands. It's also a monk monastery, or a former monk monastery, and they do boat trips out to them every day. So you can do a circumnavigating boat trip if you weren't wanting to get onto shore, or you could get onto shore and do some of the hiking up to the summits for some beautiful pictures, as well as seeing a lot of the artisan work and the cobblestone buildings that they have created that are still standing, even despite kind of all the weather that they get out there. It's also a puffin colony. So again, some beautiful wildlife that is very much untouched, because people are only there for about an hour a day. And that's only in a small season. Usually the best time to go is late July into August. So again, it's a very much an untouched region, and it's definitely should be on your list if it isn't. Ireland really has a great diversity in accommodations as well. All of these pictures come from one of my favorite properties in this area outside of Kenmare, which is in County Kerry. This is Sheen Falls. It has a hotel, but it also has villa stays. And they have villas like the bottom left that can house anywhere between 2 people and a romantic couple experience, or up to about 12 to 14. They can fit in some of these bigger accommodations. So if you're looking for something that's a little bit different, as well as giving you the flexibility, this is a great place to base out of, especially if you're looking to do some of those day trips. You could have all the common living areas like this, the dining rooms, the kitchens. Some people might want to go out explore for half of the day or for the full day, and some people may want to relax by the creek or go for a walk around the property. Places like this definitely make it a little bit easier for travel. When we move north, again, this is another region that is on a lot of itineraries kind of based around that County Mayo area where Galway is. And along the way, you'll find a lot of beautiful natural wonders like the Cliffs of Moher or the Aran Islands or the Burin. And no trip to Ireland really can be done without, in my opinion, a stop in Galway. Galway really is the food and the live music home of Ireland. Again, it has the lively, vibrant streets that you can walk down any time of the year, and there's live music happening all the time, coming out of the doors of the restaurants and out on the street corners as well. Again, great shopping, but it's also famous for its water activities. So it's fishing, it's lobster potting, and it's great food. There's a lot of activities you can go out with a local fisherman and help them gather in the lobster harvest for that day. They would take it to the restaurant and then they'll cook it for you. So there's a lot of great experiences in Galway itself, as well as staying just outside of it. And about 40 minutes south of Galway is the Cliffs of Moher. Again, you may have seen an image like this before. It's one of the highest travel destinations in Ireland for tourism. It's actually about 12 miles long, and it's about 700 feet tall. So it's a beautiful place to be at either sunrise or sunset, and there's a lot of different ways you can experience it. There are some hiking trails that go along the rim of the cliffs, as well as the lookout points. And also there are some boat cruises you can do from the bottom if you want to see a different perspective. But all along these cliffs are some beautiful gannet colonies and beautiful bird colonies that are into the rocks. So again, it's a stunning stop along the way between starting in the southwest and moving up into the north. One of the most underrated, I would say, pit stops is just right next to the Cliffs of Moher is the Burin. And this is about a 10-mile squared national park. It's the smallest national park in Ireland. And it's all rocky outcrops like this. Again, lots of ruins that are straddled around. To me, it feels a lot like Wuthering Heights with a lot of that Moorish perspective. And all along, you have these limestone rock outcrops, and within them, you have these beautiful flowers that are jutting out. They actually have about 75% of all the flower species in Ireland can be found within this little area. They say it used to be a riverbed, but it's actually a great stopping point, again, to get out, stretch your legs, go for a hike. They have a lot of hiking trails around the Burin. The Aran Islands is a nice half-day trip, full-day trip, overnight trip. You can do it in many of those different options. You take a boat out from Doolin, and Aran Islands, in my opinion, is what a lot of people come to me with the visual interpretation of what Ireland is and what they want to see. It's the rolling hills, it's the wide open spaces, it's not the crowds, it's the local farmers. That type of experience you will find in the Aran Islands. And again, you can do that one of many ways. And one of my favorite properties in this north kind of west region is Ballinhinch Castle. And again, going to Ireland without having a castle stay is a tricky thing. And again, I would always look to have a mix of properties and accommodations within your stay, but ending it with a place like Ballinhinch. And again, Ballinhinch is a 4-star castle. There are a lot of 5-star castles that take luxury above and beyond, but this is a 4-star, and the price is fantastic. And the reason why I like Ballinhinch is because the property is ginormous. They have about 13 miles of hiking trails on property, as well as they have the best, and it's constantly rated, the best trout estuary anywhere in Ireland. So if you like fishing, this is a great place to do it. If you don't like fishing and you want to try fly fishing, this is a great place to try that, as well as going hiking. Again, they do have on staff one of those lobster potters that will go down to Galway with you. And the picture in the bottom left is actually Fisherman's Bar, which is in the hotel, and it's where all the locals come. That is their pub. So if you want to have that truly local feeling without the tourists, to overhear stories of what's happening in the local life, this is a beautiful place to do it. On the flip side, a destination that was brought up a few times last month was Uganda. Uganda definitely, we did speak about Rwanda a few months ago, but Uganda is Rwanda onto the next level in kind of in size, as well as additional activities you can do there. But Uganda really is a truly special destination for wildlife experiences, and not just gorillas. And I'll get to that in a sec. But where is Uganda? How do you get to Uganda? It is in East Africa. It's right next to Kenya and Tanzania. And the nice thing about it is if you're flying from the Midwest here, Minneapolis, you can fly with one stop into Uganda. You would fly through Amsterdam and you're right there. If you're already on safari and say you're in the Serengeti in Tanzania or in the Masai Mara in Kenya, it's a direct flight. There's one flight and you get into your gorilla trekking lodge. So it's a very easy kind of itinerary add-on. If you're looking to do that, most people would do it anywhere between 4 to 7 nights. And it's a great add-on that gives you a different experience to what a traditional safari would give you. That being said, there is the Big Five in Uganda, and a lot of people, they don't know about that at all. They always just think about Rwanda and Uganda being gorillas and chimps, and that's it. But actually, Uganda has the Big Five in multiple national parks, as well as in any country in Africa. They have the highest density of birds anywhere. So it is a big birding paradise, and you'll see some images in a sec. But there are 10 national parks within Uganda. The first one, I'm going to look at 3 tonight. The first one is Bwindi Impenetrable National Park. And this is one that you would go to if you were wanting to trek with the gorillas. The experience difference between Rwanda and Uganda is a little bit easier for people to trek with the gorillas. The terrain is a little bit more flat. Again, all of this region is very volcanic, mountainous region, so it is very dense, and as you can tell from the word impenetrable, yes, it is a rainforest, but your trusty tracker will be chopping you through with a machete. But this is a place where you would go to trek with the gorillas, and how that would be done is you would go out to the national park headquarters in the morning. You would meet your tracking guide. You would find out which family of gorillas are you going to go and explore and visit that day, and then you head off in group of 8. Maximum group sizes are 8. You would travel into the jungle with your tracker and your guide until you found your family. And generally they know where they're going to be based on where they were yesterday. And then once you arrive, you'll spend an hour with that family. Again, gorillas, they like to nest in one area. So again, once you get there, you're sitting with them, you're not moving, you're just watching them live their life. And for many, it can be a humbling experience to be face to face with these animals and just watch them watching you at the same time. Again, there's some beautiful properties. The properties at the bottom, that's Bwindi Lodge. again, set up into the tree canopies. And again, it's a very beautiful experience to pair off, and nothing like coming back to the lodge and having a nice meal and sitting by the fireside with a beverage, and recapping kind of what you experienced that day. The second national park is Kabali. And again, beautiful properties. Again, you could just go here just for the properties alone. You've got these volcanic rings, where a lot of the properties are set up on top of the rim. Again, very private, very beautiful. But again, people come to Kabali for not only the gorillas, but for the chimps. And chimpanzees, they say there's roughly about 1,500 chimpanzees in this area, where you can go out and do some chimp trekking. It's a little bit different to gorilla trekking. Like I mentioned, gorillas, they nest. Chimps, they're always on the move. So again, they will hunker down in about a group of 100 overnight, but then once daylight comes, boom, they're off. They're all looking for food. Sometimes they'll go in groups of 2, sometimes they'll go in groups of 7 to 10. It's all about wanting to get food themselves. So the difference between the two, gorillas, once you find them, you're a little bit more relaxed. You can sit and watch. Chimpanzee trekking is constantly on the move because, again, most likely they're swinging through the trees, or constantly moving along the ground, and you're having to stay up with them. Again, spending an hour with them is what the national park allows. But again, it is an hour well spent in this region. The final national park that I'm going to talk about in Uganda is Murchison Falls. And this is a special place. And like Erin mentioned earlier, the Nile River kind of running backwards from south to north. This is actually where one of the spots where the Nile River continues and then connects with the rest of the Nile. But this is the Victoria Nile. And the water rushes through the chasm, which is Murchison Falls. Here you can do great experiences on the water. You can do dinner cruises, you can do game drives to see some of the wildlife, as well as going to see the local communities. So again, birding is very, very popular in this area. You got the gray crested bird here, as well as a lot of density of elephants, as well as a lot of buffalo. If you go to some of the other national parks, that's where you'll find the sanctuaries for the rhinos, as well as the leopards and lions. But again, a lot of the properties here in Uganda are based around sustainability and helping local communities develop. So a lot of the properties, and I would say the majority of the properties, invest at least half of the nightly rate back into the local communities, or schools as well. So there's a lot of opportunities to meet the local people. There are 50 different tribes within Uganda. So again, your experiences is always going to be a little bit different. But again, it is a very, very special destination where you can not just gorilla trek, but you can add in a lot more around that as well. So that kind of wraps up our destinations that we're going to talk about tonight.
Chris, can I jump
Yes,
in quick
absolutely.
for one question that we had for Ireland? And that
Yep.
is, what is the ideal time frame for a decent trip to Ireland?
So in terms of time frame, I've had people go anywhere in from like 9 to 10 days onwards, and I would say the ideal time frame is about 2 weeks. Again, it depends on the pace of your trip. Like I had mentioned, there are a lot of destinations and properties that are great for basing out of. So a place like Sheen Falls or a place like Ballinhinch near Galway, or even in Dublin, allow you to kind of spend 3, 4, 5, 6 nights in that area and do day trips from, so you're not constantly on the move. But generally, most trips would be around that 2-week mark. And again, seasonality plays a big factor in that as well. A good time of year to go is from May to September. Again, you do have the Northern Hemisphere school holidays within that too. So June, July, and August can get very busy. So May and September are pretty ideal. But every year the weather is slightly different. So again, there's a lot to play, but 2 weeks generally is a perfect amount of time. Anything more, you could do 3 weeks, and you could really kind of add on extra nights into your stay to make it a little bit more special.
Thank you.
Great. So right now, and we do have some time for some questions in a little bit after this too. But we would like to hear a little bit from you guys. We would like to kind of know, where are you thinking your first international trip will be? And it doesn't have to be anywhere we've talked about tonight. It could be a warm weather destination down into the Caribbean. It could be Mexico. It could be something a little bit longer into Europe. But if you have something in mind, let us know, just so we can get a little bit more of a sense of kind of what you guys are thinking, what the world is thinking. It's nice to understand these things. And then a little bit about, when are you hoping to go? Are you hoping to get through this summer and travel? Or are you looking more kind of third quarter, fourth quarter of this year, or even waiting into next year? So let us know. Also, if you do have any questions, please put them in the chat now, and Erin will be monitoring that, and we can hopefully answer them for you tonight.
Got Betsy saying she wants to go to Tuscany next summer, which I think we're working on that one with you already, Betsy. Japan, Korea later this year. Ooh, another Japan this fall.
And there are a lot of destinations that we are waiting for them to reopen. So some places like Australia and New Zealand. From all that we've heard from those areas, it sounds like Australia might be reopening to US travelers come October of this year. And then New Zealand is anticipating reopening in January of 2022. Again, a lot of the European countries are trying to get back going by this summer. But again, all of that type of information, we can keep you posted, as well as if you have something in mind, always reach out to us. Feel free to contact either Linda or anyone on our team, and we'd be happy to answer any of those questions or find out extra information for you.
Well, there's some good stuff on here. My own mother is on here and says she wants to do the monarch butterflies in Mexico. That's a great trip. We've had a few people do that. Mexico City is a really easy and feels exotic, but is really not that far. I love Mexico City. And then if you're there, the timing's right, you can go see the monarchs and their migration. And the videos I've seen are just incredible. There are so many of them. Let's see. I'm trying to think if there was one other question about how much time for a Cuba trip. That one also kind of depends on what you want to do. I've had people go for 5 days and that was it. Cuba, you really mostly base yourself in Havana. So if you just want to do Havana with a few day trips, you could do 5 or 6 days. I think if you have closer to 10 days, then you can spend some time snorkeling, Bay of Pigs. There's some really cool national parks where you can take these old kind of Russian Jeeps into the forest and see some waterfalls. So I would say 7 to 10 days for Cuba is probably ideal. Let's see. I don't think we have any other questions, just some other great places people are wanting to go. Some more Mexico. Yeah, Mexico's easy. And for those that are ready to travel, there are some close to home international destinations that are very feasible. We've got people traveling that are feeling ready to do so. So whether you're planning now or, even 2022, we keep pushing you guys to plan early due to the state of the world. And I think we'll kind of continue to say that because it's going to come back and it's going to come back fast.
Yeah, and like Erin mentioned earlier about places like Japan, a lot of these destinations will book out pretty quickly once travel restarts. And what we're starting to see for a lot of these destinations is the rollover of travel from 2020 into 2021. And now a lot of those travelers looking to fill up early space into 2022. So if you do have something in mind, it's not a bad idea to start planning. And again, it might just be a very basic and quick draft of what an itinerary might look like. But at the same time, it would be better if you're thinking of doing something later this year or into 2022, to start looking at availability, just to check, because again, you don't want to get to later this year ready to go and you find out you can't do the trip that you're hoping for. So again, there are a lot of destinations that are already starting to fill up. A lot of the places in Tanzania and Kenya are starting to sell out big time for 2022. And you'll notice that as well once Australia, New Zealand reopens, and then obviously once Europe reopens, you'll get that in a big wave. People will be ready to go back to Europe as soon as they can. So always keep in mind, it's not a bad time to start thinking and putting ideas together. Any other questions, Erin?
No, I think we're all set here.
Perfect. Well, again, thank you for joining us tonight. Hopefully we've been able to add some things to your bucket list or rearrange some things on your bucket list. Again, our next travel night will be March 23rd, but more information of that will come out in the newsletter this month. But again, thank you for joining us, and hopefully we'll be able to do this in person, hopefully sooner rather than later. And again, thank you and have a great night.
And everybody.